Secretary Johnson, thank you. It's good to see you again. And I want to say thank you again publicly to you to being in Oklahoma City on April the 19th when we were remembering the Murrah building explosion 20 years ago. And
I was really pleased to be there, and I thought it was a great day.
It was. That's a day that Oklahomans continue to remember and the nation continues to remember. And thank you for coming and being a part of that. Your words were spot on. So thanks for being there as well. I have a whole litany of issues, so I'm going to run through them fairly quickly. One is dealing with the flood mapping issues with FEMA. Obviously, we've got a $1 billion cost here to redo the flood maps when Congress just changed with the Bigot Waters bill, how we're going to actually grandfather in a lot of those policies, which, by the way, I disagreed with that whole decision, but that's a conversation for another day. At the end of it, we have a $1 billion cost coming down from FEMA to remap when those maps won't actually be used for revised flood cost for the risk insurance. Is that a good use? Is there a better time to do that? Are those other dollars? Why put it in this year and this time?
Well, we need new flood maps. I think it's time to do that. We need new flood maps, and it's not inexpensive. Very clearly, I'm interested in a solvent flood insurance program that is affordable for the insureds, for your constituents and others. And so it's time for new flood maps. It's something we need to do.
Okay, well, we can talk about that further. One of the things I would challenge as well is in many areas of my state, through the initial mapping that was done and the way that it was done, many areas were looped into flood space that weren't traditionally flood space. When they went back to an engineer that was locally, and an engineer actually shot it locally and then did the challenge, over and over again, those were being overturned. And I don't know what the rate is nationally, but the stories over and over again are coming back. If they come back and challenge it and can show documentation, they're getting it overturned. But it's costing each of these homeowners about $1,000 to $2,000 to come and have someone physically shoot it rather than do that from satellites. So there are some challenges that we're going to have to work through the process to make sure it doesn't increase the cost for the individuals while we're dealing with flood mapping as well.
I hear you.
Let me go through a couple other things as well. DHS, I know you have some protocols in place on this, but want to be able to just reaffirm on the budget issues. Protocols are memorandums of understanding in place with other agencies to ensure there's not duplication of effort. Obviously, there are multiple grants, there are multiple efforts that are happening. DHS does that other entities also do. I just want to make sure that actively DHS is working to have those memorandum of understanding in place so we're not duplicating effort with other agencies. Do you feel comfortable we're at that spot?
Yes, that is a priority of mine. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. We'll follow up on that. Okay, this is just a personal pet peeve.
Yes.
So we're going to go off the rails for a minute.
Okay.
This is something that has been there for 10 years that I'd like to see shift at some point.
Okay.
The USCIS questionnaire and the civics test, the oral test, has in it one of these things. What are two rights of everyone living in the United States? And then it lists out 6 different things: freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition the government, freedom of worship, the right to bear arms. Now, this has been around for a decade on it. I'd love to see freedom of worship actually shift to freedom of religion. Oh. We in the United States actually have freedom of religion, not freedom of worship. Worship confines you to a location. Freedom of religion, we have the right to express. We have this unique ability in America not to say that our government limits us to worship in this spot and you can do anything you want. It's to be able to live your faith. That's something that's, again, that's previous conversations on it, but love for you to be able to take a look at that again. Let me also affirm something. Right after the federal judge put a stay on the policy change on immigration late last year, you publicly came out quickly and said DHS will follow the federal judge.
Yes.
That what they've stated, we're going to stop and we're going to follow the federal judge.
Yes.
So thank you for stepping out to be able to do that. Here was the challenge, and where I've had some back and forth on it, because the subcommittee that I chair also has the federal workforce in it. As you know, DHS has had some challenges just on worker morale within the federal agencies. Again, that's been there for a long time. You've walked into it, but that is a great responsibility that you have, is to be able to reinforce some absolutely fantastic people that serve with DHS around the country that literally put their lives on the line for Americans every single day, quietly behind the scenes, and do great work. So we are incredibly grateful for the work that they do all the time. But when you made that statement, and then a week later, the president, during a town hall meeting in Miami, made the statement of when someone challenged him and said, are we going to be deported during this time period since this judge has made this statement? He responded back, there'll be consequences for any ICE agent that doesn't follow my policy. Now, I'm not asking you to be able to repeat back to the president. That's not fair to you. What I'm asking is, I started getting responses back from DHS folks saying, we don't know which way to go. The secretary said, we're going to follow it. We feel like the president just said there's consequences if we don't follow his new policy, and we're in a bad spot. The challenge is, how are you managing that within the entity to be able to communicate back to people? There will not be consequences on individuals if they follow the law and if they follow a judge's order.
Well, let me be very clear about something. What was enjoined was implementation of a new program called the Deferred Action for Parenthood Arrivals,
Correct.
as well as the expanded criteria, certain very specific criteria that expanded upon the DACA program from 2012. Those are the two things that are the subject of the litigation. What's not a subject of the litigation are the new revised priorities for how we focus our removal resources. That is a separate policy, which I issued out on November 20.
Correct.
Which is not subject to the litigation.
Right, aware of all that.
And that has been trained to the workforce, the ICE workforce, the CBP workforce, and that is going forward and should be going forward. I believe in training the workforce. I believe in educating the workforce. From my time at the Department of Defense, I know that that is essential. And Senator, if you believe that there are elements of my workforce in your state that have some doubt about it, then I'd be happy to work to clarify it.
What can be done from your office to reinforce back to the workforce, both that they're protected as if they have an issue, they can still be a whistleblower, that they don't have to live in fear, that they can still follow policy that is clear policy and the clear law, and they have this sense that I can still do my job and what I have done for a long time.
Well, I've encouraged that repeatedly. If there's a particular field office of any one of our components where we think that there's some confusion or doubt about that, I'm happy to focus on that like a laser beam to make sure that there is clarity. I think clarity in how we train, how we educate on new policies is critical. I know that from my DOD experience.
Senator Paul.